And good evening, everyone. John Russell, along with Scott DeCamp of the CatchMark Technologies and CatchMark SportsNet. John Russell of Greater Muskegon Sports Network, and my partner in crime, heavily on crime, Cal Van Single with the Greater Muskegon Sports Network. And our special guest today is Mike Meekoff of M7 Sports. So great having you guys all here. Going to do something a little bit different this time around, Scott, right?
Yeah, we got a little bit of a big game going on this week.
What could that be?
It's okay. We'll stop beating around the bush.
Yeah.
It's Muskegon at Mona Shores. It's our CatchMark SportsNet game of the week. Always a big one, not only locally, but it's a big one on a statewide level too.
Exactly. So we're going to devote the last part of the program to that, a little bit more heavy than we do any one game. We'll still do our round robin a little bit on the other games from around the area. So fantastic. And I want to start with Mike a little bit. Congratulations on M7 Sports, obviously, but also some big news in your future, looks like, huh?
Yeah, so I accepted a part-time internship with Fox 17 to cover some of the smaller college games around West Michigan. So I'm really looking forward to that. We got Hope College, Grand Valley, Davenport, Ferris State, and Western Michigan, and Kalamazoo, I believe. So I'm looking forward to being at some of those on Saturday and, continuing to make a difference here in West Michigan.
Can I cut in real quick?
Sure.
First of all, this guy was already trying to cut in on me with M7 Sports. Now he's coming at me from two directions.
Right, exactly.
He's coming at me from Fox 17 and M7 Sports. So I can't win. I don't know, man.
Well, and he's going to go to college. I mean, you're going to be teaching the course pretty soon.
I hope so.
No,
But how refreshing is it to see a 17, 18-year-old young man having the moxie and the mojo this kid's got?
Yeah.
And a lot of kids don't want to do anything, and he's out there getting it done. So good job, man. Proud of
Yeah, I
you.
appreciate that, Cal. Thank you.
Fantastic. No, it's great having you along. Well, we're going to start, we'll get to the OK Green, obviously, because that will be the Mona Shores and Muskegon game. And so we're going to kind of put that off the back burner, I should say. So let's start with the West Michigan Conference game. Start with you, Cal, on this one. Maybe a little bit surprised for the second week in a row of an opponent against Oak Ridge, kind of playing them close.
Yeah.
This one, Oak Ridge 32, North Muskegon 27.
Yeah, I really would like to know the identity of the Eagles, only because when you look at, we've seen them week 2 against Whitehall, and they just dismantled Whitehall, that big offensive line, and ran all over them. So they're thinking, wow, they are really going to just cruise right through the West Michigan Conference. Well, Montague gets them. They struggle with North Muskegon. And for lack of a better word, I kind of came up with a Jekyll and Hyde team. Who are these guys? I think Kerry Harger and his staff got to be going, what are we going to get here on Friday night? And, I think you were going to touch on Vanderput with a big night, but I would to me, it's like they're still searching for an identity, but that's on the outside looking in.
No, that's right. I mean, it's hard to figure out, and maybe that's a good excuse for me for my bad picks that I've been making this year, because you just don't know what you're going to get on a given day. But really with Oak Ridge, of course, it starts with Vanderput. I mean, it's not a one-man show, but he's a great player, all-stater coming back. Against North Muskegon, he had 265 yards, 4 touchdowns. He scored the go-ahead touchdown early in the 4th. That was the difference. But credit North Muskegon. They've played some tough opponents, and obviously they gave Catholic a little bit of a test early in the opener. And then now, with Oak Ridge, they pushed them to the brink pretty much. So credit them too. So
I'm really looking forward to doing that game Friday night with the Norsemen. To get a look at the Norsemen and say, okay, show us what you got.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the one with Ravenna, right? They have Ravenna this week.
Yeah. We've kind of turned into the Ravenna network. We followed them for a couple of weeks in a row. So.
And everyone, you think I'm the Ravenna homer. You guys are the ones that are covering them every week.
Exactly. But, let's, and then this week it'll be Oak Ridge taking on Shelby. Let's jump down to that game, Ravenna and North Muskegon. First of all, Ravenna knocking off Hart, game that we did on the Greater Muskegon Sports Network last week, 41-14. We talked about it again, didn't really know what to expect. Did we expect it could be a one-sided game? Quite honestly, yes. But Hart's been playing some pretty good football, and it was a big night for Ravenna. They had the 1996 championship team back. They had homecoming back. They didn't have a homecoming the year before because of COVID. I was talking to Justin Eagle about that. So he said there was a lot of distractions for our team, because I asked him, I said, were you worried that you're going to lay an egg on a big night and he says, well, yeah, that's always in the back of your mind. But he said the kids stayed focused. And your thoughts on that game, Ken?
Yeah, they came out really driven and focused. And I wanted to talk about Hunter Hogan.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, he has that great run. I think you've seen it on the video. Breaks 8 tackles, and kind of legit tackles. They weren't And, you know, I remember he came on around that right side, and I'm going to start counting. And I was happy to get to 8. But I was like, there's 1 and 2 and 3,
Good thing there wasn't 9.
4, 5. I think you could probably tell my voice. I'm a 6. You know, then he gets done, and I'm like, he broke 8 tackles. So it was really, what a great run by Hunter Hogan. And that's just a kind of a true bulldog football player right there, just relentless.
You're kind of disappointed that he didn't get in the end zone almost. You're like, all that and he didn't get in the end
Yeah.
zone. No offense. I mean, that was a great run, but you're like, man.
Yeah. That way, only 3 more guys, he would have been there. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yep.
But you know, Joe Tanis, and we've talked about it, we all know Joe. He's going to be so good for that program over there, I really do believe. And, you know, his guys, well, like John Madden says, they won't let you quit. Remember, you say, oh, they're not going to quit. Well, they won't let you go. But I'll tell you what, his team did not quit. I mean, the score is 41-14, and those guys were hitting, they were running.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with the effort they put out there against Ravenna.
And you can't turn the ball, you can't turn the ball over 5 times.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, they had a lot of turnovers in that game, and really since the first couple games, they've struggled in some of those tougher WMC games, and they got another tough one this week. But the good news for Hart is they got Shelby and White Cloud to close out the season, 2 very winnable games. And I really think Joe Tanis is doing a phenomenal job building that culture up, especially with them being in the smaller league next year. I think in the years forward, they really have a chance to make their first playoff appearance, besides the one last year, obviously, because everybody got in, but they earned their first playoff appearance, I should say.
And I don't want to shortchange North Muskegon. We mentioned them only in the loss to Oak Ridge, but you know, Larry Witham, you know, you kind of hit it on the head there, Scott. They have battled everybody, and I talked to Larry a little bit about that today, and he says, yeah, we don't back down from anybody. You know, they've had some injuries. They're a smaller school. They kind of get beat up a little bit. But they have played everybody tough. I mean, they started out the season with Catholic Central. Give them all they want for one half. Montague, to be quite honest, that was a pretty close game after one half as well.
Yeah, that was misleading. I think it was a 35-0 game, but it was 7-0, and it stayed that way for a while. You know, freshman quarterback James Young, we talked about him before, but he's hung in there nicely for a freshman who's, you know, first varsity experience this year, and he was 13 of 22, 254 yards with 3 touchdowns. He had 2 picks, but you know, they stayed right in it. You know, that game, you got to give him credit for that. I think this game with Ravenna that you guys are covering on Friday is going to be a heck of a game.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be one of the games of the week. So yeah, I'm happy that we're there. We're looking forward to that.
Obviously, a must-win too for North Muskegon's playoff chances. They sit at 2 and 4, and you know, there isn't that automatic eliminator or qualifier like before with these new rules, but it's pretty hard to get in at 4 and 5. So I think this is a must-win for them against Ravenna.
Well, and both of these teams, I mean, let's face it, they're playing for playoffs right now. I mean, I think Montague's going to be a little bit too far to catch, maybe, or whoever, you know, in the top 2. But yeah, Ravenna, and they've got this game this week with North Muskegon, and then they play Oak Ridge, and then they got Central Montcalm, who is no pushover in that CSAA. So yeah, I mean, both of these teams playing for playoffs, that's for sure. How do we see this North Muskegon-Ravenna game? Cal, we're going to be doing it. What are you thinking?
Wow. Tight one. I just without seeing North Muskegon,
It's
that's
tough.
sure. I know the Pruitt kid, I'm really looking forward. I don't think I've seen him. Looking forward to watching him play that freshman. But Bulldogs seem to be on a little bit of a roll right now, so if I got to pick, probably go Bulldogs.
Okay, how about you?
I'd go with Ravenna, and yeah, I did get a chance to see him against Mason County Central. They played on a Thursday, and they really had some good skilled kids, and I'm going to go with Ravenna by a couple touchdowns.
You're going to have to wait until you see my picks on Thursday. I'm sorry. Plus, well, never mind. I was going to say everyone knows where I'm from, but I'm not tipping my hand on any of that because I've been accused of going too far the other way with maybe not giving enough credit. So you'll have to wait till Thursday and see.
I've been really impressed with Ravenna. We haven't seen North Muskegon play, but you know what? I'm going to go off the board here a little bit. North Muskegon's playing at home. They played tough. I think they get rewarded. So I'm going to take North Muskegon in that one. Montague, well, let's do Whitehall shutting out Ludington 49-0. Ludington having their struggles this year.
Yeah, that was a game that happened because Whitehall was initially scheduled to play Mason County Central. Mason County Central had dropped Whitehall, Montague, and Oak Ridge prior to the season. And so Whitehall picked up Ludington. That's kind of a preview of of a new divisional opponent for next year when Ludington joins the West Michigan Conference. And the story of that game, in my mind, was 2 things. One was Alec Pruitt. He had 308 yards and 2 touchdowns. That puts him right at 1,000 for the season, having just a phenomenal year. And then their defense, that was, I believe, a 4th straight shutout for Whitehall. So those are the stories of the game, simply put.
Exactly. Anything to add on the Whitehall game?
Yeah, so The score wasn't super surprising, but I will say that's a few shutouts in a row for Whitehall, and that's really impressive. I think their chances look really good going in the Montague game. They've really played some great football since that Oak Ridge loss.
And go ahead.
You have my attention now with 4 straight shutouts.
Yeah.
I mean, even maybe the level of competition was maybe down a little bit, but now you got 4 shutouts. And Pruitt goes for the big night, but I think starts up front with Reevy, Russell, Cook, Napier, and Van Patten. Those 5 guys must have been opening up holes for Pruitt to run through and run wild. When you can go for 300 yards. So, John?
And Whitehall is going to be taking on Hart this week. The other game we'll touch on here, Montague, again, taking on Shelby. And it's just not to say it's not been Shelby's year. It's really not. We say it every week, but boy, they can't wait for the expansion for that league to change up.
Yeah, with Shelby, it's I've heard this multiple coaches say they just give them credit for it. They're suiting up every week, and they're doing what they can. I mean, it's not going their way, obviously, but you got to give them credit for being out there doing it.
And what's the story with Montague this week? Are they they were supposed to play Mason County. It's kind of tough to keep track of what's going on. What are you hearing?
Yeah, the latest we heard today, and I think Mike saw it as well, was from our friend over in Montague, Just a Gu, Eric Greiner.
Right.
He tweeted out that it's official now that there's no game.
Okay.
They didn't find a game. They're just going to have the week off. I mean, they're still practicing, and it gives them maybe one more week, a few more days of preparation for the Whitehall game next week.
Sure.
Well, you look at that and wonder, because Oak Ridge had that week off before they played them and came in and kind of came in flat. Really, now you got to wonder all week, or their staff's got to wonder all week, how are we going to respond to this, having the week off?
I think so too, because it just, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, it kind of takes you out of that rhythm a little bit.
Yeah.
And you just don't know how kids are going to respond, and that's the thing. I mean, they could respond well. I mean,
Sure.
we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
The conference looks like this: Montague 5-0 in the conference, 5-1 overall. In fact, everybody, the top 3 are at 5-1. Oak Ridge at 3-1, and Whitehall at 3-1. So still a bit of a race there, but Montague's in the driver's seat to say the least. Let's move on to the Lake State Conference, and really the game we'll talk about in this one is the Muskegon Catholic Muskegon Heights game, a game that until maybe the loss to Ludington by Heights really had some sizzle to it. Didn't know how this one was going to shake out, but it didn't shake out too well for Muskegon Heights.
No, and they hung in there actually for most of the first half. It was a crazy final minute and a half where there were 3 touchdowns scored. But I think third quarter, and again, you've seen this a lot out of Catholic, is where they just start wearing opponents down a little bit. You saw it against North Muskegon. You saw it against Benton Harbor. Second half, that experienced line just kind of takes over. But the story there is the 500th win.
Right.
Yeah.
500 program wins. And, I mean, I'll kick it back over to you guys. I mean, when you think about that and you think about Muskegon Catholic Central's program, I mean, 500 wins. I mean, what does that mean to you guys?
Yeah, it just says a lot for Muskegon Catholic and for our area, just how good of football teams we get to see around here. And I think since the playoff era started, they have the most out of everybody in the Muskegon area. And so I think it's just a huge credit to the program Muskegon Catholic's built, and their coaches and their players that have came there through the years. They've had some NFL players, and really it's a huge accomplishment. And I will make a comment about the Muskegon Catholic Heights game. I think the second to last play before half, Heights gave up a touchdown on a fake jet sweep. I think there was 2 seconds left that put Catholic up by 2 scores, and I think that had to be a morale breaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the Heights, I think
Yeah.
the longer they can play close, the better off they're going to be
Yeah.
if you go back at previous history. How about Catholic? Elliot Riedler, 3rd-generation player. You got the 2 Convertini boys, 2nd-generation player. That's a generational school, it seems like. And when you go 3rd generation, Dick Perry, that's his grandson for Dick Perry, who's a longtime coach here. I think I know he coached some, was an assistant, I think, at Muskegon, and he was up north also for a while, maybe Ludington or somewhere. So that's just cool to see the generational kids still competing.
Yeah, I will say that too. I just notice every year I feel like there was a couple times this year at the beginning of the season I got some guys' names wrong on my articles because I thought they were guys that came back and it was just their younger brothers. And I've heard about their parents that played there before, and I really just feel like for a lot of their history it's been the same families, the same generations that have just brought kids through the program, and it's really kind of turned that into a family atmosphere.
Yeah, that's so true. And you want to talk about generational. Look at Mike Rebecki. and what I mean by that is he spanned a lot of generations all by himself.
Yeah.
And no offense, because
Right.
there's not a guy that commands more respect than him.
Right.
In the coaching circles in West Michigan and what he's done, and just that continuity. He speaks to the continuity of I did a story last week that talks about Catholic, and to me, it's continuity, it's family, and consistency. All those things apply because it's such a steady message that they always have, and those expectations are always, they set that bar high every year.
And he is one of the most elusive interviews. I have never been able. He's so no, I don't want to talk about it.
Same here. Yep.
Yeah. I read that article that you get all the way back to Mike Chiaverini, and how he is. Rebecca's taking some of the stuff that Chev did and taking it forward. So, and Mike Holmes was another one that he would do the interview, but he was always like, nah, it's not. You can find somebody else. No, we really want to talk to you. So.
One of the biggest things I'll give Mike Rebecca credit for is that in a time where I feel like so many people are just trying to climb up the ladder in whatever career they're in, he hasn't really wanted to be a head coach or get the attention or be in the spotlight or build up his career. He's just wanted to coach football and really, truly be there for the kids, and that's probably the biggest thing I have respect for him.
No, he just wants to roll up his sleeves.
To be there. And he's had, from what I've heard, he's had multiple opportunities where he wouldn't even have to interview. He'd just get the job, but he's turned them all down, and that just speaks to the kind of character he has and how selfless he is and the job that he's doing, just trying to impact kids.
I remember the first time we interviewed Mike Holmes, you said to me, hey, his IQ is like 160, so don't say anything dumb.
No, Mike is definitely one of the, and this is not a knock on anybody, it really isn't, but you tend to talk football with football guys, right? Mike is one guy that you can sit and have a conversation about anything. I mean, this guy is very intelligent. I always learn something, which is not unusual for me.
I feel like Steve Zerwan's that way too. He's he's got that. He likes to. I don't want to say debate you, but he'll get into some deep discussions too. Yeah. So he's an intelligent guy himself.
More than just football.
He's a lot more than just that.
Let's move over to the OK, and we'll start with the OK Blue. This is my good pick last week. Fruitport over Hamilton, 37 to 21. Notice I said that was my good pick, as if there were many not good picks, but Fruitport is good to see them get back on track.
Yeah, we'll kick it over to Mike. I mean, I've got some stuff on that too, but if you want to talk about that one a little bit, Mike.
Yeah, Cody Nash had a heck of a game for him, if I remember seeing the stat sheet right. I think he had punt return for a touchdown or a punt block for a touchdown. He had another rushing touchdown or two, and had a lot of yards rushing and receiving. So he was the big difference maker for them, and it was really good to see Fruitport, that kind of come to fruition for Fruitport. They're 2-4, but they're probably the best 2-4 team in the area as far as the teams they've lost to. I mean, they lost to Cadillac, who was in the D4 finals last year, Coopersville, who's 5-1, Spring Lake, who's 5-1, and West Catholic, who's undefeated. So when you talk about strength of schedule and playing the best, I mean, that's really what you can look at and say they could have scheduled some easy teams. I know a lot of them were conference games, but they could have been still in the Lakes 8 like they were years ago and probably been undefeated, but they went to the OK Blue, and I'm glad to see them get rewarded finally for playing that tough schedule and being seasoned to where when they get to a winnable game, they could get that one.
Yeah, that's a big win for them. That was a game that some might have considered a toss-up. In fact, in our weekly picks, I'm like, which way am I going to go with that? But at the end of it, my head and my heart told me I got to go with Fruitport. I think they're going to get it done, and they did. So that was a good win for them.
Well, the game that kind of, I think, surprised us a little bit, we thought it was going to be a very close game, good game, or at least I did, was Unity Christian taking on Spring Lake. I know you made the trek over there, and your thoughts on...
Yeah, we were both there. Mike and I were both there, along with Andrew Johnson and then Zach Reichert, a guy who's freelancing for MLive right now. Yeah. We were all there covering it. It was a big game, battle of unbeatens, number 3 versus number 5 in Division 4. And the way the analogy I use is kind of like Spring Lake doing this down the field, Unity. Spring Lake, Unity. It's like that's kind of how the game went. It was like Spring Lake, the first 2 possessions methodically drove and scored and answering each other, and then all of a sudden Unity just kept going, and Spring Lake couldn't capitalize after that.
Yeah, and You're not wrong there. That's exactly right. I mean, Spring Lake's kind of methodically moved it down the field, scored on their first 2 possessions, and it was all unity. I think the only time they got stopped, was at the 1-yard line when they fumbled. And so, yeah, and that's one of the best wing T teams I've covered in my 3 years. Just the way they were able to move down the field on a really good football team. Most wing T teams are kind of methodical and try to drain the clock on you and move a little bit at a time, and they were just go, go, go. And they actually had some real athletes, and I think they're going to be a special team to watch this year in Division 4.
The Orchard View teams under Shiloh were a lot like that too, because the wing T was supposed to be this lumbering, oh man, you better not fall down because you're going to not have time to come back, but they would score as fast on a running play as most teams would on a pass play.
Yeah, the Chandler twins for them are special. I mean, they're about 6'3", 185, and just great athletes, and they're just a handful for Spring Lake and for anybody. They're really good players.
I had seen some extended footage on Unity Christian a couple weeks ago, and I was looking at them, and I kind of look at your core. I mean, a lot of kids can have the big arms. I want to see what your core looks like. And they had the big, the big calves, big thighs. Their core looked really strong, and I thought, this is a team that's physically strong. And then Unity has also had the great tradition, state champs, I think 2 years ago, and I thought they were just going to be too much for Spring Lake. And I know I took Unity that one, and I thought if Spring Lake can knock off Unity, they've really got a good ball club.
Well, Spring Lake doesn't have a lot of time to lick their wounds. I mean, they come right back to another one of the top teams in the conference in Coopersville.
You got them, and then they got West Catholic yet waiting.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's not getting any easier for them.
No.
And last week, I wasn't aware until I showed up at the game that Christian Folkert, one of their best players, wasn't even dressed. He was like in a walking boot. I think they expect to get him back probably soon, but that's a big loss. Does that make up for that differential against Unity? Probably not, but I mean, that's still a 2-time all-area type guy that you're missing, so that didn't help.
And the conference itself, you got West Catholic and Unity Christian standing on top 6-0, 4-0, and then that battle, Coopersville, Spring Lake 3-1, 5-1. So very, very competitive, very, very top-ended conference there. Let's go to the OK Red for one game with Granville. I was a little bit surprised by the score on this one. I kind of put this on, maybe it could be not necessarily a toss-up, but a close game. Granville getting Grand Haven by the score of 50-7.
Yeah, I was actually asking people throughout the week. I'm like, do you think Grand Haven has a chance? I think, I was kind of thought, this is a must-win game for them. Grand Haven might show up and they might get this one. But Granville's another one of those wing T teams that's really good at it, and they just came in and dominated. And so, obviously really disappointing for Grand Haven, but Granville's having a pretty good season with a young team over there.
That's such a tough league. I mean, we say it all the time, but I mean, they're still, Grand Haven's still not out of the woods yet.
No.
They've got Hudsonville this week, and I believe maybe East Kentwood next week, but then they close the regular season with Rockford, so it's like it just doesn't get much easier for them.
I think a lot of coaches want to say, hey, I coached in the OK Conference. I think that's a stepping stone for a lot of coaches. And then all of a sudden they'll say, I want to coach in the OK Red, and then you just kind of look at him and go, really? You know who's in the Red? How hard it is to win the Red? And yeah, it's OK Red's a bear.
Isn't it Pennington that's over at Caledonia now?
Yes.
Yeah,
and they play Rockford this week. That's a big one.
And Caledonia here, I mean, they've had a history of having a solid football team, but they were on hard times here just a few years ago. And Pennington came over from Sealand East, and really has got those guys going. 4-0
sure.
in the conference, 6-0, along with Rockford. You just had 4-0, 6-0, and then you got Hudsonville 3-1 and 3-3.
Yeah.
Let's move over. We've got a few seconds. We'll talk about the CSAA before we move on to the big game this week. And Kent City over Holton. Boy, that was a track meet. We were getting updates on this one, and it was first of all, I think we had that game surrounded. Was that the game that was like
we had four guys reporting
that one? You'd have thought that was, and it was a big game, but 50-38, Kent City winds up hanging on for the win in that one.
Yeah, and I just want to say Austin Fowler's been playing some great football recently. He has 15 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks through the year. I mean, I think that's 18 total now for the season on him. And, he did his part to help him win that game. And it was just one of those type of things where neither team could stop each other. But I will say that's probably the last game on Holton's regular season schedule that they'll lose.
Yeah, Alex Smith has really done a good job of turning that team around, hasn't he?
Yeah, and they got a neighboring rival, Hesperia, this week. So, that's a good opportunity. And like Mike said, it's looking pretty good for them closing out the regular season. So, and I believe they're Division 8.
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, and maybe we'll even see like a Holton Heights matchup. That could be fun, I think.
Sure, sure. Morley over Hesperia 70-6. An interesting and intriguing team to me. We don't cover them a whole lot, but back in our days in the old Newaygo County Athletic Association days, White Cloud has put together a pretty respectable year. I mean, here you're talking a team that hadn't had a football team. Back in my day, I know they didn't have a football game for a year, and I think fairly recently they didn't have a football team again. And they kind of rise like a phoenix from the ashes. And, they're 2-2, 4-2. They beat Lakeview by the score. I mean, I know it's Lakeview, but still, 28-14. So, good on the Indians, huh?
Yeah, Joe Gorman, his second year there. 4-2 now. They got Kent City coming in, so that's a real measuring stick game for them just to see exactly how far they've come. Kent City, they're in second place in the division now, but I still think they're the best team in the division. They're in second because they had to take a forfeit loss to Morley, which is in first place.
They have back-to-back forfeit losses.
They did. Well,
Yeah.
the one was a no contest. Hesperia was a no contest, so that didn't
okay,
count.
all right.
So,
But they went 2 weeks without playing the game.
They did.
Yeah.
They were out 2 weeks and came back, and it's a challenging game. Going to Holton, who's playing pretty well. They had to kind of shake off that rust and.
And then, not to interrupt, they're playing on turf then too.
Yeah.
Which is different than what they've been playing on grass probably the whole year. Now you're on
And
turf.
Kansas City's got turf now too. That's the
Oh,
thing
you're
that
right.
people
I
forget.
forgot about that.
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
they played on it just once, I think, maybe once or twice, and
Yeah.
then they had
Yep.
the forfeit
Yeah,
game and et cetera. But yeah, that's we'll see. That'll be a big game for Kent, or not for Kent City. Every game for them here on out because they missed a couple games, but huge one for White Cloud in terms of see how far they've come.
Exactly. The CSAA Gold. Hey, break up the Grant Tigers, huh? They knock off Newaygo 12-7, coming off a couple of wins. Beat Fremont the week before. How about your brag on your Tigers, Cal?
Brady Jacobs playing really well for the Grand Tigers, and hey, beat Newaygo, and you beat Fremont.
That's still a big deal, isn't it?
It is, and now the Tri-County's already got them. But yeah, if you beat Newaygo, good job, guys. Kind of like beating Oak Ridge,
Right.
Ravenna boy there. So you with beating maybe Catholic, or I'm sorry, Muskegon.
I don't have any.
You're putting them on the spot now.
Yeah, exactly. Other games, and we'll move on to the big clash we're talking about here. Reed City takes it to Central Montcalm 50-15. Big Rapids over Chip Hills 41-8. Tri-County continues to roll as they knock off Fremont by the score of 20-12.
That was way closer than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
Way closer.
2 weeks in a row, the Packers put on some points, did something there, so you never know what's going to happen here. All right, well, now we're going to spend the remaining time that we have talking about the game in the OK Green. First of all, before we step forward, we'll step a little bit to last week. Muskegon 58, Holland nothing. No big surprise there. I mean, we all kind of saw that coming, and we all kind of figured it was going to be a long night for Holton. For Holland.
Fourth straight shutout for them, or third straight, but
Yep,
178 to
Wyoming,
nothing in that span. 178 to nothing was
A
the
lot
total.
of Scribs pizza.
Total margin. Yeah, I was gonna say that's Scribs is really happy right now,
Right.
getting that Muskegon Big Reds money coming in there. But just kind of just methodical again.
Yeah.
They outrushed Holland to the tune of 335 to 34. So I mean, it was clearly where they did a lot of their damage. They threw the ball up a little bit, but it was. I mean, they want to run the ball, so
Right.
that's what they did.
I was really impressed with the shutout against Holland because they're averaging around 30 points a game. They've put up a lot of points, and they have a couple good guys on offense. And to be able to shut them down really speaks a lot about how far their defenses came throughout the last few weeks.
And Cal, let's talk about this Muskegon-Holland game a little bit. It just seems like Muskegon, it really coming into their own. Young team. I mean, we forget that sometimes. Young, talented team, but it really seems like they're comfortable in their skin now.
Yeah, six sophomores and a freshman, so 7 guys in that starting lineup, and their JVs are winning, and their JVs are undefeated, and they're actually almost playing as violent as what the varsity is. I've heard stories about them. JV kids are just flying to the ball, and so that Muskegon team, it's good now, but man, their future looks even brighter.
Mona Shores, the other half of this combo this week, really had not much trouble with Reese Puffer, 57 to 15.
Yeah, that was one of that really got away. Especially, I think it was the second quarter. Shores put up 36 points in the second quarter, just basically put it away. And I think the main thing there is you got to take care of business, but you want to stay healthy for the next week. And Mike might know a little bit better than I do, but it seems like by and large they're in pretty good shape going into that. But yeah, they got it done with a lot of different guys.
Yeah, so Muskegon's been playing really well defensively, like I said, but Mona Shores has been playing really well offensively. I think since that loss to Detroit King, they've scored on every single offensive drive they've had besides two. They fumbled against Union and they punted the first drive against Reese Puffer. So really some great things happening for them on the offensive side of the ball. And Mark Konechny's, performing really well in the passing game, and Demir Farnham and Konechny are also doing really well on the ground.
You look at Puffer, Johnson has kind of come back to earth a little bit now that there's a lot of film out there on him, that running back from Puffer. He was just lighting it up here early in the season, big games, but I assume he's been slowed up a little bit also. So I was really hoping Puffer could have that 5-4, 6-3 season to try to get some excitement going there for the future.
Well, they do play Holland this week, so there is hope for Puffer, that's for sure, I think, right?
Yep, homecoming game for them, yep.
Yeah.
Is it me that it seemed like Shores start slow all the time?
Yeah, especially defensively, and I think really their pass defense has started really slow, but they've gone in and made some adjustments, and in the second half, if you go back and watch, they haven't given up much.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the game on the table right now, Mona Shores and Muskegon, and we have some interesting perspectives here. Cal has seen the Big Red from up close. Obviously, Mike is still going to Mona Shores. You can't get much closer than that. I'm an old Big Red, emphasis on old, so I get a chance to bring kind of this perspective of where this rivalry was in the late 70s, late to mid 70s, and of course you've written about all of them for years and years.
Yeah,
and
I've got a good look at both of them. As has Mike, he's covered both of them extensively. So, one thing I got to put in a little plug for CatchMark. We're actually going to be, as I said, it's our game of the week. We're going to be there doing a pregame show at 6 o'clock. We're going to stream that live on YouTube on our CatchMark SportsNet channel. And then we'll have, we're not going to stream the game. Sailor Nation Sports Network will have that.
Okay.
They always do a great job.
Yes.
And so we'll be there though with the full crew covering the game, full game of the week coverage, and then stuff coming up in the days following. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, we got a little preview on some stuff, some really special stuff. I think folks are going to be impressed. So that's pretty cool. Well, let's talk about this conference. I mean, it doesn't. The top of this conference, the Big Reds 4-0, 5-1. Mona Shores 4-0, 5-1. Both losing to Detroit schools. Both losing to schools that probably are going to wind up deep in the playoffs at the very least. And you look at the points for, points against. You got the Big Reds 267 points that they've scored, but with those, thanks to those shutouts, only have given up 76 points this season. Mona Shores 284. To your point about them scoring all the time, giving up 137. This has all the makings of a heavyweight battle, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely, and I feel like it comes down to this every year for the conference championship. It's always Muskegon and Mona Shores right at the top of whether before it was the OK Black, now it's the OK Green, and just to see some of the great players that have gone through some of those matchups in the last 10 years. You had Deshaun Thrower back in 2013, Tyree Jackson for Mona Shores back in 2014. Then you had Khalil Pimpleton, Ladarius Jefferson, and Cam Martinez all in a row for Muskegon. So you've really got some great players that have played in that game.
Right.
And that's what I feel like makes it super exciting to watch. And just seeing what some of those guys have been able to do afterward really makes a lot of people pay attention and even go back years after the fact and watch some of the highlights. Like I was just watching highlights from the 2013 matchup. I think Muskegon won that one, 26-20. But yeah, every year, there was a gap from about 2016 to 19 where it wasn't that competitive. There was I think one or two good games in there, but other than that, it's been a great matchup every year.
Yeah, one thing I'll say too, kind of building off what you said, the great players. Cameron Martinez was a back-to-back Player of the Year, M-Live Player of the Year.
And then Brady Rose.
And then Brady Rose followed that up. And if you look at that game last year, if you look at the series, it's 32-8 in favor of Muskegon. It's been pretty heavily leaning that way. And then, Shores got him a couple times in the last decade or whatever, a few times, and last year they did get them 21-14. Shores won on Muskegon's field on the first game after they had renovated Hackley Stadium. And Rose, obviously, as he did throughout his career, especially the last 2 years, he made so many big plays. And in that game alone last year, I think he saved 3 or 4 touchdowns with like shoestring tackles. That it might have been a different outcome of that game.
I think 2 or 3 of those were on the first drive too, and then they got that fumble.
Yeah, he made some great plays, but it was a great game last year. And I mean, I don't know how you can't expect another great one. I mean, just the anticipation, the crowd, just the emotion of that, what you get in that rivalry game. There's things that might happen that you might not expect just because of that emotion.
Yeah, and you look at the 2 coaches, both of them were on the same sideline at Muskegon for years. Of course, Shane Fairfield was an assistant, as was Matt Koziak under Tony Anise. Matt takes over the Muskegon program for a year and then gets out of coaching for a little while before he comes back to his alma mater at Mona Shores. So these 2 guys, they know one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Scott said, the rivalry is pretty one-sided as far as the history of it. And really anybody that's paid attention to high school football around here besides the last 10 years know that before Matt Koziak got that job, Mona Shores was a laughingstock of a football program. I mean, I don't think they made the playoffs one time in their entire history. And then a couple of years after Matt Koziak got there, they started competing for state championships. I think they've been in 4, won 2.
Right.
So that's really become one of the best programs in the state, and it's really one of the. You see coaches all the time where they get the job and they try to do, but it's really hard to actually be able to accomplish that. And there might have been some things that went in favor of him, but I think that's a heck of a job that program's done since he's been there, and just changing the culture and getting kids to believe.
Cal, we'd always talked about it, and Matt was ready not to hear it anymore, but it always came up, was the last Greater Muskegon area team to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And even Matt's first year, I think they go 1-8. They got Tyree Jackson. I remember talking to Matt Koziak about that decision. He says, I could not start Tyree, or I could start him, let him take his lumps, but this kid's going to be special. And he took his lumps his first year. Mm-hmm. But boy, did that kid become special.
We were sitting in the press box pretty much alone then,
Yeah.
which is unheard
What a difference.
By the way, we can't get in there anymore. I mean, we get the flag or something.
Right.
And he unleashed about a 50-yard bomb, and you and I looked at each other, and we're like mouthing going, oh my God.
Yeah.
And we knew right then that Mona Shores they were onto something special.
And you talk about a player growing and a program growing. I mean, Tyree was 5'9", 135 pounds as a freshman, and now he's a 6'7", 252-pound beast with the Eagles as a tight end. But I mean, Cal, what can you say for the growth of them, what they've done? But then if you look on the other side of things, I mean, Muskegon's just been a fixture. I mean, they're the program, the preeminent program in the area, in the state, and even ranking nationally. I mean, what can you say about them with what they've achieved and just their history and that mystique that they have?
Well, I spent some time with Shane this morning. I got about 2 minutes worth of stuff here if it works on our timeline. But I asked Shane 4 questions, and then I just got some notes from him. You maybe have some of the stuff. But 127 wins and 23 losses. This is his 11th season. 9 districts, 5 straight regionals, 7 trips to the finals. Twice, I think, they lost in the last play. And, of course, 2017, they won it all. But I said, what drives you? I mean, what drives Shane Fairfield? And he says, my daughters. He says, I drive off my daughters. He goes, winning, inspiring his players to be their best on and off the field. Are just some of the many things that drives them. And I said, what are your keys to your success? And he goes, the commitment to the cause of what we're doing. And that's my keys to success and winning. And finally, the question I asked him, is this week different like other weeks? And he looks at me and he smiles and goes, he says, people make it different. No, it really. He goes, yeah, the media now, all of a sudden, everybody's coming out of the woodwork. The Grand Rapids station, everybody wants to talk to me now. The Grand Rapids, some of the stations in Grand Rapids have us ranked 7th or 8th. Really? Yet Division 5 schools ahead of us. So, and he was being polite and respectful about it, but he goes, all of a sudden now all these people are coming out of the woodwork. And they're betting on the games, and everybody's talking about this game. Well, we have been here for the last 6 weeks. Shores has been there for the last 6 weeks. Why is everybody coming at us now? We're no different. It's just we have a tough opponent in front of us. So that was one thing, and he kind of fired it back at me, which is fine. But he says, yeah, everybody else makes it different. Talk about.
We got that. I don't want to cut you off here, but we got that a little bit. Mike and I were both at practice, and yeah, I mean, I think he's fired up for this, and I think a lot of that has to do with why are people coming now. Well, it's because of the stature of the programs, and I mean, no offense to the teams that Muskegon just played, but everyone knew those were going to be runaway games, and that's just the nature of it. We have other teams we have to cover too,
right?
So we're trying to spread our resources and cover other teams too, but. And I understand Muskegon's, again, as I stated, they're a premier program, and they warrant coverage too. But I think that's a lot of reason why all the media comes out of the woodwork now is because that has emerged as not only a game, if not the game in the area. It's one of the tops in the state on a yearly basis now.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead.
Well, offensively, I got some stats, maybe you have them too, but they're only averaging 21 plays a game on offense. 21. The average is 40 to 60. They're running 21. They've run 131 plays offensively. 26 of those have gone for 40 yards or more. They've had 2 running clocks in the first half, where the other coach had said, hey, we gotta. You're already up 28 or 35. It's the first half, and 3 different times you've hung 50 or more on teams. Their defense, their starters have only allowed 49 points as a team, 76. And their defense has only been on the field for that 40 to 50 snaps right in there. And like what you two guys were talking about, Hudson or Unity Christian, Spring Lake, Muskegon scoring in 1 play, 2 play, 3 plays. And he has a backup running back averaging 76 yards per carry, 76. I'm like, so they handed it, and he goes, I think I got to get him the ball more, and I'm like, well. But yeah, so, and he wasn't taking shots at you guys. I want to get that clear, but he's just like. Because I asked him the question, thinking this week it's different. And he goes, no, the medium makes it different.
No, I think there's something to be said for that. I understand that perspective as well. But I can only speak on from our perspective. And Mike, I don't know if you agree with that. Yeah. We're looking at a lot of different things. But I mean, we do build it up. We do build this game up because, I mean, look where these programs have been. Muskegon's been there for the long haul. Shores has been there more recently. And I mean, that's what people really want to know. They want to follow. They want to hear about.
Yeah. And I'll say this. It's not like I'm covering any non-competitive games either, at least purposely. Some games that I've gone to that I thought were going to be good ended up being non-competitive. But it's not. It has nothing to do with not liking Muskegon or not liking Shores or, not covering them over the last few weeks. It's about I want to be able to – we cover 28 schools, and I want to be able to showcase – every team as much as I can in this area, and it doesn't even have to be the Shores game. I mean, I covered Muskegon against East Kentwood, Cass Tech, Zeeland West, and I thought those were all good matchups with in high quality programs, or at least at that moment. And so I'll cover Muskegon against any team that I think it's going to be a good game, and I think that our viewers are going to be interested in watching. I will say that I think Shane's one of the best coaches in this area, not just because of what he does on the field, but I think he does a lot for those kids off the field as well that a lot of people don't see, and he probably gets criticized more than any other coach in this area. And
that job's a pressure cooker. That Muskegon job's a pressure cooker, and I think both coaches do a great job in their own way. They're different. They're completely different, but they do a great job in their own way in reaching those kids. So one thing I know, Cal wants to say something.
Shane has 20 players currently right now playing collegiately, 20. And he had 13 that either graduated or have left programs.
And I feel like every week I'm writing about somebody doing some big thing off, whether it's on the D2, D3, D1, D2, D3 level. I feel like everybody's contributing and making headlines every week that's gone on and played collegiately for them. And other kids are just super respectful too, as far as they're easy to talk to, and it's the same with pretty much any program around here. And I think whenever you get players that are respectful to the media and know how to talk to adults, I think it really speaks a lot about what their coaches have taught them and kind of integrated in the program to treat everyone with respect.
And as we wrap up here, we're down to just seconds, is just from the 70s on, and Mike alluded to it, it used to be a dominant by the Big Reds. And I know the feeling, speaking as a Big Red, was it was always kind of like, I think of Mike Hart's comment at Michigan, against Michigan State, little brother. And that's kind of the way it was. Mona Shores was always the tennis school, they were the golf school, but when it came football, not so much. But boy, since the Koziak era, things have really changed.
Yeah, they have, and that's what's made it noteworthy now. That the rivalry is still slanted, pretty much one way. But Shores is, they won the last 2 Division II state titles, so you gotta you gotta give them their credit. And both of them deserve credit, but that's why we're out there trying to cover them this week. So
exactly.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great game, a fun game.
Yeah, looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, me too.
All right, I think by the clock on the wall here, Tim, Billy has been telling us that we're moving on here. Again, we want to thank Billy Mann. I don't think we mentioned him nearly enough. He keeps us online here. He's responsible for all the really bad shows. The good shows we'll take credit for. I've known Billy for a long time. He's a great guy, and we appreciate him guiding us along here. So that's going to do it for us for this week. We successfully landed another plane here, it looks like.
That's right.
So for Scott DeCamp, Mike Meekoff, thanks for stopping by, Mike.
Yeah, no problem.
Cal
Thanks for
Van
having me.
Single, I'm John Russell. Have yourself a good evening, everyone.